All right, good evening. We will go ahead and get started at this time. I want to thank you very much for making the time to be here this evening. My name is Jimmy D'Andrea, and I have the honor of going into my second year serving as principal of Cheltenham High School. And we are so excited to welcome your families to be part of our larger school community. I know that many families use this last week before school starts as a time to get away. So I know some of you may be joining us from various places that you're on vacation. This is being recorded though, so we will be posting this on the website for anyone who is not able to attend this evening. But again, for those of you who are here with us now, please know that we really appreciate you making this time, and we look forward to, over the next 30 minutes or so, sharing some key information that we think will be helpful for you as your student transitions to Cheltenham High School. The focus of tonight will be primarily on incoming ninth grade students, although this meeting is for any parent or guardian who has a student that will be new to Cheltenham High School in any grade level. Before we introduce those who are with us this evening, I do just want to take a moment and reflect back on what our mission is as a school, because ultimately that drives everything we do. Our mission is to foster, through an education of exceptional quality, the intellect, culture, and individuality of every student who passes through its doors. While this is my second year at Cheltenham High School, this is my 11th year as a principal. I was principal for 9 years of two different schools just outside Washington, D.C. And I can say in the year that I've been here so far, I've really come to love very quickly this amazing community. I am a resident of the township as well. And when we look at our mission, I can see the support that has been provided by our central administration and our board of school directors to ensure that we can offer a wide range of opportunities for our students, both inside and outside the classroom. So again, thank you all very much for being here this evening. And I'd now like to introduce to you the individuals that I have with us for this evening. We have 6 members of our administrative team and 4 are with us this evening. And again, this presentation, for those of you who are just joining now, this presentation, as well as the slideshow, will be posted on our website. So you don't have to write down or take pictures of things if you don't want to. So as I said, my name is Jimmy D'Andrea. I am proud to be serving as principal. We have Miss Lori Felgois, one of our vice principals. We have Dr. Ben Hammond, another one of our vice principals. And we have Mr. Byron Ryan, a third one of our vice principals. The other 2 members of our administrative team who are not with us this evening are Ms. Christine Zubeiru, who is our 4th vice principal, and then Mr. Patrick Fleury, our director of athletics and activities. This evening, you're going to hear from Dr. Hammond and myself throughout the presentation, and then Ms. Felgois and Mr. Ryan will be responding to questions that are posted in the Q&A. So throughout this evening, you can post questions there and they will respond to those. In some cases, we may hold some questions that we think would be beneficial for everyone until the end, and then we can answer them for everyone at that time. But you should have, either at the bottom or top of your screen, if you moved your menu bar, a button that says Q&A. If you click on that, that will enable you to type a question, and then after a response has been provided, everyone will be able to see that question and the response that was provided to that question. And I do want to also emphasize that we know that the transition to high school can be very overwhelming, not just for students, but also for parents and guardians. So please know this is just the start of the process. We will be working a lot with your students over the next several weeks to help them have a smooth transition to high school. But please know you can reach out to any of us at any time if you have a question. And if you're not sure who in the school would be the best person to reach out to, you're always welcome to email me directly, and then I can help point you in the correct direction. I now want to take a moment to highlight one other group of people that are key point people for you in your work with the school, as well as for your students, and that is our counseling team. They are assigned to students based on the first letter of student's last name. The assignments vary slightly from grade level to grade level, so what you see on the screen right now are the assignments for grade 9 based on the first letters of student's last name. So for example, if your student's last name starts with letters between A and CLA, their counselor is Ms. Kayla Vargas, and then her email address is to the right. I do want to note that Ms. Vargas will be on leave for the first couple of weeks of the school year. So our mental health counselor, Mr. Spentley Turan, who is listed at the bottom of the screen, will be filling in for Ms. Vargas. So if your student's counselor is Ms. Vargas and you have a question early on in the school year, I encourage you to reach out to Mr. Turan. After Ms. Vargas returns, Mr. Tran will then return to his role as mental health counselor. We are very fortunate to have someone whose entire focus is supporting students' mental health. And we also have, during the time that Mr. Tran is filling in for Ms. Vargas, someone who will be filling in for him as well, Dr. Cheryl Horsey, who some of you may know because she is a retiree from the district who is very involved with the high school in supporting students. It is important to note for those of you that this is your first high school student, counseling looks a little bit different at the high school level because not only is there support for student social emotional needs, but there's also a very big focus on supporting students academically, making sure that they're earning the credits that they need in each grade level so that they have the credits that they need when they get to their senior year in order to graduate. And then our counselors also provide support to students in their transition to post-secondary opportunities. So for example, one of the things our counselors did this summer is provide what we refer to as a college boot camp. And I know you're ninth grade families and you're not necessarily thinking about college at this point, but that's an example of something that our counselors provide in terms of extra support for students in that process if students are applying to go to college right after high school. And again, this is just introductory and there'll be a lot more information coming over the coming months. So a couple of updates from the summer. I'm very excited to share that we now have a brand new fire alarm system. We had contractors in the building this summer that had to literally go into every single space, every closet, every room in the building, open up the ceiling and put in new wiring. So that fire alarm system now is online. And we were also very fortunate to get new smart boards in every single classroom. So we had a lot of work going on this summer. And that's why I want to apologize that we did not put out information about tours sooner, because if you had come to the school a few weeks ago, the building was not in good shape because of all the work that was happening throughout the building. And so our custodial team has worked very hard these past couple of weeks to get the building ready. And as of this weekend, we were in very good shape. And that's when we said we do want to move ahead and offer the tour opportunity. And I know a lot of students took advantage of that this morning. Please know, though, that that was completely optional, and we will be supporting students with orientation activities for the first several weeks of the school year. So I know that probably one of the biggest questions that you have as a parent or guardian is, what should I expect on the first day? And any students who may be with you, we definitely welcome them as well. I know that in many cases, by the time students get to high school, the students are not necessarily interested in sitting down with their parents or guardians to attend a meeting. But obviously, if students are here, we are happy to have them too. So the question that is probably at the top of everyone's mind is what happens next Monday when school starts on August 28th? So students before Monday should determine how they're going to be getting to school. If students are provided bus transportation, their bus route and the time that they will be picked up and where is in Power School. Some students do not have bus transportation provided because they live so close to the school. So in that case, they would be able to walk to school. And I also know that a number of families will be dropping off students. And the drop-off area for the high school is the entrance by the main parking lot. So we have a couple of smaller parking lots, but I think everyone is familiar with the very, very large parking lot that's on the corner of 309 and Easton Road. The building entrance by that parking lot is the drop-off area. So if you are bringing your student to school, please come through that drop-off area to drop them off in the morning. Keep in mind that first period starts at 7:30, and because we have 1,450 students, if everybody tries to arrive at 7:25, that doesn't work very well, and people end up being late. So my advice is to plan to be at the school no later than 7:20. Students can come in the building as early as 7, though. So I definitely encourage you to work with your student to think about what time you're going to be leaving, because high school starts earlier than what students are used to if they're coming straight from 8th grade. And again, I know we have some new parents and guardians on here who are new to our area, and so their high school students may be entering other grades. So at 7:30 a.m., all students will report to their first period Blue Day class. We use a block schedule at the high school, so students have 8 different periods in their schedule. And on Blue Days, they go to their Blue Day classes, periods 1, 2, 3, and 4. And on Gold Days, they go to their Gold Day classes, periods 1, 2, 3, and 4. Many of our classes meet on both blue and gold days, so you will notice when you look at some student schedules in Power School that they may have the same class first period on both blue and gold day, but it's important that students know, and we will constantly remind them of, whether it's a blue or a gold day. So they'll report to their first period blue day at 7:30. During this first week of school, we have 190 staff members, and everyone will be in the hallway helping students to find classroom locations. So while the building is large, students should not be worried about if they're going to be able to find their classroom, if they're going to be late. We are supporting them and know that students will often need additional time to find those classes right at the beginning of the year. After our first period on Monday, all students will move to their homeroom, and during that time, there will be an assembly for all ninth grade students. So they'll have an opportunity to meet me, the other members of the administrative team, their counselors, and other key staff in person, and we'll start to talk about some of the orientation and transition activities that will be occurring over the next few weeks. And then there will be 3 lunch periods. I know this is something that is probably on a lot of your minds if you've talked to families who had students at the high school last year. So let me talk about the schedule to start with for Monday and really for the first 2.5 weeks through September 13th. So not just the first day, but every day through September 13th, students will report to their first period at 7:30, whether it's a blue or a gold day, and then they'll follow that schedule. We will have homeroom activities for students each day for the first 2.5 weeks. And once a week, the students will have an assembly with the administrative team, which is part of our process of laying out expectations and helping make sure that students have a smooth transition. During period 3, for the first 2.5 weeks, students will be assigned a lunch period that's 30 minutes in length, that it is either at the beginning of 3rd period, the middle of 3rd period, or the end of 3rd period. It is listed on their schedule, but their 3rd period teacher will let them know, so they don't have to worry about trying to figure it out in advance. During that 30-minute lunch period, students are required to come to the cafeteria. And in a moment, Dr. Hammond's going to talk more about food service options and what's available. But all students will come to the cafeteria, whether they brought their own lunch or whether they plan to buy lunch for that 30-minute period during the first 2.5 weeks. And then after all the lunches and everybody's completed 3rd period, then they'll go to their 4th period class. So a moment ago, I alluded to what you may have heard from other families if you have talked to individuals who were at the high school last year. Last year, we piloted at the end of September and the beginning of October a program that was often referred to as community lunch. As I mentioned earlier, I was previously a principal for 9 years just outside Washington, D.C., and many of the high schools in that area do a community lunch model. And there are few high schools in this area that also do. The Lower Marion School District, among others, also implement this model. The reason this model is, I believe, so important is because when all students have the same lunch period, that means all of the teachers can be available to provide extra support. When we have 3 lunches, every teacher is assigned a lunch as well. So a student could have one lunch and the teacher they need to see to get extra help could have a different lunch. And so there's no opportunity during that lunch period. And so we piloted at the end of September and beginning of October what we refer to as community lunch, where all students had a lunch period that was a little over an hour in length. And all teachers had designated times over the course of each week when students could go and see them for extra help. Teachers may say, I really need you to come at this time to make up some assignments or so I can provide some additional support. And it's also an opportunity for clubs and activities to meet. It's also a way that we will implement activities for students to help with their mental health, recognizing all that students have been through with COVID and the transition back to school. So our tentative start date this year is September 14th, and we're rebranding it as what we're going to be referring to as Lunch and Learn, to emphasize the component of not only is it a time to eat lunch and to be able to socialize, but it's also a time to learn and make sure that you are where you need to be in your classes and to get extra help from your teachers. So as we approach that date, we will be sending more information to families, and we will talk a lot more with the students over the next 2.5 weeks about what this looks like and where they are allowed to go in the building during that time and what's available to them. And if you have questions about it as we get into the school year, please don't hesitate to reach out at any time. So at this time, I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Hammond to talk a little bit more about school meals.
Thank you. At the high school, we are working with Whitson's to provide our lunches for all of our students. Our standard lunch for all students is $3.25. So if your student's asking you for money to buy different items, you know that a standard lunch comes with a drink, a fruit, your full meal, and a vegetable. It is $3.25. However, we do have a la carte items, and you just need to make sure when you go to that school cafe, it allows you to track how much money you put on your child's account so that you can keep tabs on how much they're spending and what they're buying. But we do have a lot of different options, but the minimum is $3.25 for that lunch. And we do have free breakfast every morning. All of our students have to do is when they go in the building, there was going to be somebody there that is handing out a free breakfast. And if they're hungry, they can take it. Next slide. Lockers. We encourage your children not to share their locker. It happens every year, and every year you have good friendships that are not good, that are good friendships to start the year, and they're not good friendships by the end of the year. But they gave their locker combination and all their belongings are in these lockers. So we ask you to please talk with your child. Do not let them share their lockers. Every student is issued a locker. There is no need to share lockers. So please encourage your child not to share a locker with somebody else and to use the locker that they are assigned. Also, in the first day of school, in our homeroom periods, each student will be issued a new student ID. If they have their student IDs from last year, they will not work. Once a new ID is printed, the old ID is no longer valid. So they'll get a brand new ID when they come to school. And we ask them to keep those IDs on them and always carry them because they need them every morning when they come into school to swipe into our scholarship machine. They also need them to get into lunch. It's going to tell us if they have the correct first lunch, second lunch, or third lunch. And when getting into sporting events, especially the football games that are about to come up, our students need their IDs. If they do not have one, if we find that they're not having their ID, we will bring them down to the office and issue them a new one. But we definitely need them to have an ID at all times. Next slide, please. Attendance. We understand that, emergencies happen. There's reasons why our students need to miss school, although we do want them there as much as possible. We ask that when your student is absent, that it's within the 3 days, you need to send a letter to the attendance office. And we ask actually that you email that letter. If it's a doctor's note, you can even take a picture with your phone and send that picture in to the attendance office. But we ask that you send that information into the attendance office at chsattendance@cheltenham.org. And there will be a Google form that we're going to be putting out to kind of make that a little bit easier for families to document their attendance. But I want to highlight that parents or guardians can only submit 10 days worth of absences throughout the school year. Once you hit your 10th day, you're going to get a note from the attendance office letting you know that you have exceeded that 10-day and that any absence after that, you would need a doctor's note. And if you don't have that doctor's note, it just means that all of your absences are considered unexcused. Key instructional tools. Parents, I know we try to give our students, our children, that freedom to as they get older, but I would highly suggest that you gain access to PowerSchool as well as Canvas. All of our teachers use Canvas to post assignments. Canvas will be even more up to date than PowerSchool, but PowerSchool is the ultimate grade book. You have the ability to create an account and attach it to your student so that you see everything they see. You know if there's homework assignments due. You can still give your child that freedom of making decisions and staying on top of their work, but at least you know when you ask, do you have any homework, you know already whether they do or they do not. So we highly suggest when we do post this, we'll make sure that there's going to be links in here so that you can get a tutorial on how to set up the PowerSchool or the Canvas so that it makes it easier for you as a parent. Next slide, please. And at Cheltenham, we are a safe to say school, which means we encourage our students to use the app. It's on our website, but they can make tips if they're concerned about a friend, if there's something that they saw that just didn't sit well with them and they don't want anybody to know. It's a completely anonymous tip line. Students can make reports on safe to say. It comes to every administrator. It goes to the police if it needs to go to the police, but it's completely anonymous and it allows us to get our peers, our loved ones, the help and support that they need without having to let everybody know that I'm the one saying it. So it's something we highly encourage everybody to utilize, even parents. If you're hearing stuff and you're seeing things and you want somebody to know, you can use safe to say, and it comes to us so that we can quickly act on it and be proactive in dealing with situations.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Hammond. And just to echo what Dr. Hammond said, this is one very important tool to help make sure that we keep the school safe and watch out for each individual student. We definitely encourage students to feel comfortable talking to their counselor, their administrator, or any other staff member in the building, and we will work to maintain their confidentiality. But this is one other mechanism that students and parents and community members, for that matter, can use, and we will be emphasizing this with all students next week as we return back to the building. I also do want to note, Dr. Hammond did a great job of talking about the importance of parents and guardians continuing to stay involved and monitor their students' progress in their classes, even though we know that when students get to high school, they often don't want their parents or guardians to be involved in any way. I would argue that your involvement now is even more important than ever. PowerSchool, you are probably familiar with if you have been in Cheltenham School District, since that is the way that parents and guardians have historically received grade and reporting from schools. Canvas will likely be new to many families. And again, we will be sending out more information. We just wanted to highlight that tonight. Canvas is our learning management platform. So if you are familiar with, for example, Google Classroom, that I know many teachers use in elementary and middle school, at the high school level, all of our teachers use Canvas as their learning management platform, which provides more flexibility than Google Classroom. And it's also the platform that's used by many colleges and universities. So it's a good opportunity for students and parents and guardians to become familiar with it. All right, so I'm just going to share a few more things before we wrap up. Again, we were trying to be very efficient with your time. We know it is the last week of summer, but we also want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to get as much information as possible before the start of the school year. So one of the questions that I hear most often at Cheltenham and in my years previously as a high school principal is, how do we know what's going on? There's so much happening in a high school that it can be overwhelming. And clearly, if we communicated everything that was happening in the school on a daily basis, I think most families would not even have the time to read it. And that's a great thing because we have so much happening in the school building. So what I always tell families is there's really one really important thing from a school-wide perspective. This is not the communication you'll be receiving from teachers, which is separate and very important for each of your child's classes. But in terms of things happening on a school-wide basis, every Sunday evening at approximately 7:00 p.m. during the school year, you will receive a recorded voicemail and an email message from me that will highlight in 2 or 3 minutes the key things that parents and guardians need to know for the upcoming week. And if you take a moment to scan that email or to listen to that message at some point in the early part of the week, that will give you everything that you need to know to support your student and to know what's coming up. For example, when school pictures are, other activities that are going to affect our schedule as a whole. If you would like more information and want to get a sense of what's happening on a day-to-day basis, during the school year, I post a lot on social media because it's a great way to get information out to students, but also to highlight all the amazing things that are happening at our school on a daily basis. So I am active on X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as Instagram, and I encourage you to follow along if you are on either of those social media platforms, just as a way to see some of the things that are happening. I don't post much during the summer, but we'll start back up in earnest next week. Getting involved. So this is really important. There is a lot of research that shows that when students, particularly in high school, get involved with clubs, activities, or sports, that their performance in the classroom is higher than students overall who don't get involved. And so we really encourage students to think about what they would like to do outside the classroom and then get involved with that. So fall sports at high school, all high schools throughout Pennsylvania have already started. They started a couple of weeks ago, but there will be winter and spring sports coming up later in the year. We offer more than 60 clubs and student activities. And if there's something that a student is interested in that we don't have a club or activity currently, they can start their own club or activity. And one of the, like going back to what I said about the lunch and learn that will start late the third week, one of the reasons we did that is we often have clubs and activities that will meet during the lunch period. So students can have lunch for half and go to a club or activity meeting for the other half. And this is a way that they don't have to stay after school, which may conflict with other commitments that they have. To help our students connect with various activities, we will be scheduling a student activity fair during lunch in September. The date hasn't been finalized yet, but we did it last year for the first time out on the track during one of our lunch and learn periods. We had hundreds of students come out and walk around, talk to other students who are involved in different activities and get a chance to sign up for things they might be interested in getting involved with. And so while we know sometimes ninth graders come in and say, I'd like to wait and just, focus on what's going on in the classroom right now, we really encourage students, and we would encourage you to talk with your students about thinking about getting involved with a club or other extracurricular activity or sport at some point during their ninth grade year. And they'll hear a lot from students about this over the next few weeks as well, because it is so important. I now want to close by just highlighting a couple of important dates that are coming up. One of the pieces of information that was in the welcome back email that I sent earlier this week was about our back to school night. And for those of you that have older students at Cheltenham High School, I apologize because the date was different in the information I communicated back in May for families to plan for the start of the year. I found out in late July that the date we had picked was the same date as the Glenside Food Truck Festival, which originally I did not think would be a huge issue until I found out that Easton Road was going to be closed all the way from Arcadia down to Glenside Road. And many people told me how difficult traffic is that evening. So we shifted our back to school night. So it's now Thursday, September 21st. From 6 to 7 p.m., we are hosting a community information fair in the lobby of our building. This is an opportunity for parents and guardians to come in an informal environment. There will be a variety of tables set up from our PTO to various booster clubs to community organizations, and just find out about ways you can get involved and resources that are available to you. And then beginning at 7 o'clock, you will have an opportunity. We will put out a schedule where you will get to visit each of your child's classes. We will go for our Blue Day classes, periods 1 to 4. You'll spend about 15 minutes in each of them. And then we will transition into our Gold Day classes, periods 1 to 4. It's a great way for you to experience what students experience on a day-to-day basis in terms of class transitions and getting from one room to another. And each of their teachers will provide a very short overview of what that class is that you are visiting. So we really hope that you will be available and come to our back to school night. I do want to make a side note that I strongly encourage you to carpool if you can, or if you live really close to the school, to walk, because as you can imagine, with 1,450 students, parking can be very challenging on back to school night. And then the last important date I want to highlight is the first meeting of our parent-teacher organization, or our PTO. PTO is such an incredible resource for our school and a partnership that I consider one of the most important partnerships that we have, because it's a way to help parents and guardians connect with other parents and guardians in support of the school. And like I said earlier, even though I know in high school students will say, I don't want my parents to be involved at all, I believe that this is the time that's more important than ever for you to be involved. And so our parent-teacher organization, it really provides an excellent opportunity to connect with other families and find out ways that you can get involved. And so the first meeting is going to be the last Thursday of September in our school library, 6:30 p.m. Any new parents and guardians to Cheltenham High School are invited to attend. And then at 7 p.m., all parents and guardians are invited. And it will be an informal environment to be able to ask questions. I will be there. I will share some updates about things that are happening in the school. But most importantly, it's a really great way to connect and learn about the awesome things that our PTO is planning. We have two really hardworking co-presidents for this upcoming year who have worked really hard with the PTO board to plan some really engaging activities for families. Their email addresses are listed on the screen if you would like to get in touch with them prior to that first meeting. But I will highlight one of the things that they are planning is the first ever Cheltenham High School flea market to be held in the area in front of the school by the flagpole on the third Saturday in October, which I believe is October 20th, which I think will be a very popular event for not only parents and guardians, but also for students. But again, the PTO does a tremendous amount for the school. One of the biggest things that they do each year is the PTO takes the lead on making sure that the post-prom party occurs. And again, I know that most of you on here are here for a ninth grader. But when students get to their senior year and go to their senior prom, we want students to have someplace safe to go after the prom that evening. And so our PTO plans an all-night party at the school where students have lots of activities. The school is transformed, and it's a way that students can be engaged, hang out with their friends, and we can make sure that students are safe after the prom that evening. So again, I really encourage you to mark the last two Thursdays in September on your calendar, September 21st for back to school night and September 28th for the first PTO meeting. And so with that being said, we are now going to transition to questions. Again, our goal this evening, recognizing that it is the last week of the summer, was to be very brief, but to highlight some key information. And I can't emphasize enough that if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to a staff member. And if you're not sure who to reach out to, please just reach out to me directly. I do want to note that counselors and teachers are not in school on Friday. So tomorrow is their last day of our in-service week. So if you do email a counselor or a teacher tomorrow, you will likely not get a response until the beginning of next week. If you have any questions that you have not had a chance to ask yet, I encourage you to put them in the Q&A. And I'm going to give the vice principals who are here with me now an opportunity, if there are any that they want to highlight that they think would be beneficial for everyone to hear. And I can see that someone has raised their hand, but I'm not able to click on so that you can speak. So I'd ask if you could put your question in the Q&A. We'll be more than happy to answer that. Dr. Hammond, Ms. Felgois, Mr. Reiner, are there any questions that you want to highlight for everyone?
Not at this time. I believe we were able to answer most of the questions that came through.
And again, this is recorded and will be posted online with the slides. This is just to give you kind of a preview. And at this time, I just want to thank all of you very much for making time to be here during this last week of the summer. I hope you enjoy the next couple of days, and we can't wait to see your students bright and early on Monday morning. We will stay on for a couple more minutes if you have any questions you want to post. Again, I see a couple of you are raising your hands. We are not able to, and we cannot enable so that you can speak. So I would ask that you please put that question in the Q&A and we will answer it. Thank you again and have a wonderful evening. For those of you that are still on, I will answer some of the questions that are coming through. We don't have the bus schedule. How can we learn about it? In Cheltenham, one of the things that's really helpful is that all of the bus information is in students' Power School accounts. So it's much easier than many large districts where they just publish a list of different routes. In Power School, students can access their specific bus information, the route number, and the time that the bus will come. If they have any difficulty accessing that, please just reach out to any administrator and we will make sure that you have the information for the first day. Excellent question about the graduation requirements. We actually talked about whether that's something we should cover here this evening, but in light of, we know a lot of parents have first day concerns, we said we would focus on that. The graduation requirements are online and counselors will be working with students and families to make sure that students meet those requirements to be able to graduate on time. We also do various meetings throughout the year to highlight those requirements, but in the interim, if you would like to look at those, they are on the website. If you click on counseling on the Cheltenham High School website, and if you would like to discuss in more detail, the counselor or any administrator would be happy to sit down with you after we get into the school year in September to talk about questions you may have. The meeting recording will be posted on our school website sometime tomorrow. It has to be uploaded. So sometime tomorrow it will be posted along with the slides on the school website, cheltenham.org/highschool. All right, we'll give another minute if there's any final questions. Do we have conferences in high school? That's an excellent question. Yes, we do have conferences. The structure looks a little bit different than in middle school. In middle school in the Cheltenham School District, there is an additional day where students are off prior to Thanksgiving for conferences. In high school, students have 2 days of school during Thanksgiving week, and then we do a half day of conferences on the Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving. Families can sign up either to be in person for conferences or virtual, and then we do an evening conference day in the winter during third marking period, since some students have new classes for second semester. So yes, there are conferences. If you would like to talk to a student's, your student's teacher, I encourage you to reach out directly to that teacher first via email, and then there's always the opportunity to set up individual conferences with teachers as well. All right, we are going to go ahead and end the webinar at this point. For any of you that are still with us, once again, thank you so much. We are very excited about meeting your students on Monday, and please know that you are critical partners in the success of your student, and we look forward to working with you for most of you over the next 4 years, but for any of you who have a student transferring in for whatever amount of time, they will be with us. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.